All right, good morning, everyone. We're going to do a little different perspective. We're going to look at the operations. We're going to look at the numbers. We're going to try to provide the real numbers. So how is the ANDA program doing? And what's the story behind the numbers? Right, so they gave me an easy presentation. Lots of pictures and few words, right? That's the key, right? Cook, peg me for the right job here. So what we're going to look at today is we're going to walk through the application process. We're going to look at the pre-submission, or from your perspective, the development process. We're going to look at the original applications, right? This is the meat and potatoes of the generic program. Then we're going to look at what happens after you reach approval. And then we'll put a little bit of a placeholder in for something that's very important, and you're going to hear a lot more about this today, GDUFA 2. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the changes that are coming up. So we want to first start by looking at is in the development arena. This is very important. This is the key to the success that we've seen in these past couple years. More and more product-specific guidances being issued. So we have an office dedicated to help figure out new drugs are being approved. What's the path forward? Right? We're going to hold you to a high bar. But at the same time, we can help give you that path to success. And that's what this group is doing, and especially in terms of bioequivalence. Right? What do we need? What do we need for each of the products that's being approved on the NDA side? How do we line up generic companies for success? So certainly we've seen follow the guidance or use that to sort of drive your process. That is going to be a big win for you. And we've seen really a flip within the bioequivalence program. They're now operating at around 75% or so of the applications that come through are found adequate first cycle. Much higher for the ones following this guidance. That's the key. Look at that. You know, if you have justifications on why you should deviate a little bit, be very clear about that. But look at that. FDA is giving you that bar and trying to show you how to hit that. So follow that through, and this number is going to go up every year. Tremendous amount of input into this. And Cook said it's an investment. It's an investment on both sides. We want to get these drugs out into the public quicker. This is one of the tools to make it happen. Also, we have a very formal controlled correspondence program. Right? And you heard Mike Kopcha talk about this a little before. These are questions to the agency, mostly in advance of the product being submitted. Right? If there is no guidance or you want to do something a little different or there's still uncertainty, you can formally request, Dear FDA, here's what I'm interested in. We will provide advice, provide input in how we think you can sort of navigate whatever the issue is. So this is something we take very seriously. The more we work together, the better the application is going to flow. So we're exceeding the GDUFA commitments, tremendous amount of effort on our end. Get the question, try to provide a meaningful response, and get it back into the hands of the person asking the question, right? The potential applicants. 60 days right now for the traditional questions, 90 days for the complex ones. We also are going to look at the original applications. And what you see here are sort of the trends. Normal year, big spike in December. Sort of the exception was post-stability guidance a few years ago. December is a huge spike. Companies racing to get their applications in. By the end of the year, look at this. Dear stockholders, we submitted all these applications. This puts some strain on our process. Right? We are dealing with fluctuating numbers of receipts, and we have to operationalize that. And in fact, sort of a surprise to everybody in the program, received over 150 in March. We expect a little bit of a spike, but it was higher than we thought. We had 100 applications that last week. We've got to manage that all the way through the process, meeting tighter and tighter goals. We're doing that. We're going to show you where we go from here. So what you see is we've elevated the program. Right? About 18 months ago, we were operating here. We've taken it up to the next level. Right? So for the last several months, we've been performing at a very high rate. And you heard before about the pinch points. We're going back and analyzing those. We're ready now to take this then to the next level. So as we sort of walk through the top line, complete responses, formal communications to the applicant. Dear applicant, here's what's missing, here's what's wrong. You know, send that in, let's work together, let's bridge that and hopefully move that into approval. That's what the next line, the middle line is. Approving close to 60 applications a month. In fact, last month we had over 60 full approvals. Third line, tentative approvals. We had 19 of those last month as well. Right? This data is a couple months old because we issue it quarterly, but a tremendous amount of information coming and going. And it's not just these formal actions. To help assist in to guide applications and hopefully to bring more of these applications towards final approval. So we have these information requests, a few hundred going out every month. And for those of you who pay attention to these and sort of waiting anxiously for the quarterly reports to go up, the number's a little bit less than a year or so ago. That's not that there's less output. It's a reflection of the fact that OPQ is coming together in the one voice. So they're starting to have complete quality information requests. All the quality disciplines lined up and providing one communication to the applicant rather than the sub-disciplines each providing them independently. It's a better, more cohesive response, and it's going to help you guys hit that quality standard much quicker. So this is going very well. Here's the scorecard in terms of hitting the GDUFA benchmark. Exceeding it, tremendously exceeding it. We champion every application. Every application is a fight to make the goal, and we organize ourselves. Right? We don't start off to miss any application, and we'll talk in a few minutes about the very few that are missed. But that's the key. You give us a quality submission, we will bring it through, and we will bring it through on time. So you can see how we look for FY15. A little bit newer data hasn't fully matured. This is sort of the potential goal, right? In some of the more recent months, because we're still within the clock, right? Because this is January data that's being presented. Carried over that success from the first goal year, year 3 into year 4. And now we're going to capitalize that for the year 5 submissions that are coming in with even tighter goal dates. What you see here are the few misses that we have. Very few. We miss, we don't walk away from that application. We want to walk through this for a minute or two. A lot of times people think we intend to miss 10%. That's why we have the goal. We don't, and we're not. Right? We have the goal for the ones that are outside of our immediate control. What you see here is a set real data. These are why we missed some of the GDUFA goal dates. The ones in green, these are ones we missed to go right to an approval. So the first one, there were some last-minute legal issues. Rather than give the company a CR because there wasn't a legal update, we call them on the phone. And you'll hear a little bit more from the project managers later on in this 2-day session. Right? Those are people's link in and out of the applications. You're required not just to give us the scientific data, but also the legal data. We worked with the company then at the last minute to make sure everything was squared away and brought them in towards an approval. We ate the goal to get the approval, right? It was just a day, but that's what it took. A lot of people running around at the last minute, late at night, to get everything squared away. That's our commitment to the applicants. The second green one, right? There was a response from the applicant very, very late in the process. We could have deferred the review, but instead we knew it was a matter of dotting the I, crossing the T. We could work with the applicant to bring that to an approval very quickly. Third one, a couple weeks later. This is one we were done on time. We could have issued a tentative approval and still met the goal. But we realized the goal date and the magic first commercial market dates were very close. And if we issued a tentative approval, it'd be unlikely that the applicant could have turned it around, resubmitted the conversion amendment. We have to relook at some things. So in the applicant's best interest, and to bring the drug to the public quicker, we missed the goal. We made a command decision, let's bring this product to the market. This was the first day the drug could be approved. That's the day we hit. That's what's important for us. So there's a tremendous amount of effort from the agency to help align the companies and to help align the public. They have access to these products as soon as possible. Go into sort of the 12-day tentative approval. This is one where there were some last-minute inspection issues. You heard a little bit about that, one of the pinch points. This is one where the companies also need to pay attention. It's not just your own facility, but if you're using contract facilities, make sure those facilities are in line and communicating with you appropriately. So this was a case of a lot of last-minute wrangling, but we thought we could get things done and move it in and get the tentative approval out for a forfeiture date. Not every tentative approval is essential, but in certain cases, getting that TA into the hands of the applicant is a big win. Then as you move into the red, These are ones where there were last-minute changes by the company that sort of derailed things. And then at the bottom of the screen, you see 3 that were sort of outside of the immediate control. The Office of Generic Drugs or the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality. These had big legal issues, things of that nature that were being worked on. So our commitment and the takeaway from this is we want to bring more applications to approval. You'll probably see us miss the goals a little bit more to facilitate an imminent approval. Probably see us, in terms of the red, just start to communicate with the company. Look it, we're going to give you a complete response. There's some issues emerging on your facilities. You need to go back and do a little bit more homework. Come back with the right answer, and then we'll take that through a new cycle and hopefully move it to approval at that point in time. And then we're seeing more cooperation from across the center. That was one of the big wins in GDUFA. People recognize the importance of the ANDA program. So when we're knocking on doors to get people outside of the more traditional ANDA review offices, people now know who we are. We talk to OCC, Office of Chief Counsel. We say we got an issue. They're responsive. So people are paying more and more attention to us. This number was exponentially higher a couple years ago. So this is what the GDUFA program brought. A center approach, and in many cases, even an agency approach to hit the goals. We also want to talk for a minute about the backlog. There's a lot of press about this. It is very rare that somebody explains it correctly. The term backlog, quote unquote, is legally defined in the GDUFA 1 commitment letter. It applies to applications that were pending both the FDA and industry at the time GDUFA 1 kicked off, right? October 1st, and it should say 2012. Right? This was the first day of GDUFA. What you'll see is there was a goal in GDUFA. 90% reviewed within that 5-year program. That was a complete review. We've done that. We hit that goal about 18 months early. We're up over 95% right now. And it's not just the one review. We are committed to working with these companies. Second, third, whatever it takes to move these through and hopefully get them towards final approval. So what you see now, and this is a couple months old data, down to about 120 applications with FDA that haven't been touched yet. The vast majority of these have sort of complex issues. Is it an ANDA? Is there some exclusivity or something that's precluding us from accepting the application? You know, oddballs like that. And even a few still with industry. It's been pending with the applicant since the beginning of the program. More than 4 years with the company before it's come back, right? These are the kind of things that scare the people in the Office of Management. How do you manage an application where the company doesn't even submit it in? And so what we saw is sort of companies slowly submitting their applications over this 4-year period in response to the deficiencies that they received before GDUFA 1. We also want to walk through what Cook referred to as the quarterly reports or the CEO reports. And we're going to go through one a little bit slower, and then you can sort of see how it changes. This is the cohort of the pre-year 3 applications. So these are the applications that Cook-Yule described as not having a formal GDUFA due date. Right? There's no goal other than that one touch for the backlog applications. What you can see, we filed them all, made that filing decision, giving you yes, no, and move those yeses all the way through the system. There's only a few that are more recently filed that we haven't issued a communication to the company. Information requests, complete response, whatever it takes to start that communication interaction with the companies to move these forward. There's about 1,200 of these now in play, sort of back and forth with the different review teams, right? OPQ, OGD working together with the applicants to get these information out. So that's the key. 1,200 of these older applications with FDA at this point in time. There's 1,300 with industry. More with the companies than with us. And then sort of in no man's land, the ones we've issued a tentative approval. About 300 tentative approvals at any given time. Number fluctuates, give them a tentative approval, they can come back with an amendment, and it sort of loops back into this system. These are applications that FDA has done. Right? There's no greater business certainty than getting your tentative approval. We will review, and we will bring you to the verge of approval, and then we can wait together for that magic patent or exclusivity date to hit and convert that application into full approval. And so what you see for this cohort, more applications literally with the company. Right? We're actually responding at a higher rate than the companies can come back to us. More complete responses going out than coming in. Right? We've taken our program to the next level. More of these communications going out, right? Instead of going to the complete response, can we work a little bit offline to bring that product through to an approval? So you see dozens and dozens of these communications every day from FDA. Right? And then, of course, trying to work towards a tentative approval. If we can, we get an application that's in good quality and submitted a couple years in advance of that patent or exclusivity date. We'll bring it to the edge of approval. It's what you see for this cohort. Since GDUFA started, just for this set of applications, over 2,000 approvals. Right? Then you get refused to files, companies that have withdrawn. And so that's a big set of the work before the agency. Right? The largest cohort that we have, and it is dropping every day. Now we'll sort of shift gears and look at the applications that have the formal GDUFA goals associated with it. This started in year 3. So what you see, only a few with filing. These all have special legal issues, usually having to do with, is the NDA covered by special exclusivity that precludes the generic from being submitted? Issues of that nature that require a tremendous amount of legal input before we can make a final decision on the application. And then you see, actually more now with industry than with us. We've done the formal review and we've communicated back to the company. Right, here's what needs to go on. Correct this, add this information, tighten this down, and then we can go to approval. That's where these applications stand, and already starting to see the approvals. This is great. These are applications 2.5 years or less old, and they're already being approved. Tremendous wins, and we'll talk a little bit more about the value of the newer submissions going through this, sort of streamlined review process. Next, we'll go into year 4. Right? So as you'd expect, these are newer applications. Again, a couple with legal issues. Vast majority are with us because these are still, most of them, within the goal period. And then you go into the year 5. These are the brand new submissions, come in since October. As you'd expect, more with filing. This number's a little outdated, we'll show you, but it shows you the impact of December. Right? This report was run January 1st. December, we had nearly 250 original applications submitted. Right? That's tough for us to swallow at one time, but we've set up the process to try to manage that. So what that means is there's about 400 applications with us, all within the goal clock. And yet, even by January, we were already starting to communicate and have these offline, sort of informal communications. Hey, dot this I, cross this T. Let's see what we can do to move this application forward. So if you look at the total, all of the work that is unapproved at this point in time, what you see is these December ones, right? Pops up. These are all almost brand new applications, right? This is the number that scares me and keeps me from sleeping every night. This number is going down every day, and we'll show you that in the next slide. Then you see that there's about 2,400 applications with FDA. We want this number to drop lower, but this number should never be 0. Then we're out of work, and more importantly, there's no drugs in the pipeline for the public, right? We want to get that happy median where we're down to 1,000 applications or so with us, and then hopefully just a couple hundred with industry at any given time. And as Cook presented, right, our workload is dropping and the industry workload is increasing, right? We want to work together. How can we reduce the cycle so that both our workloads align in towards approval? What you can see is just a quick update from sort of the official publication that went out in January. Here's the impact a couple months makes. That 282, right, that onslaught of December submissions, it's actually down to 100 applications. With FDA, has dropped nearly 100, right? Pulled ahead for a few months of what was being submitted from industry. And then, more importantly, the number of approvals going up. We'll talk a little bit more about that. As you can see here, this is what Cook presented earlier. When we look at the sort of midpoint statistics, we're up to 345 approvals as of March 31st. That's our great benchmark, halfway through the year. And then we had 92 tentative approvals. So we are on pace to meet last year's record maybe even surpass it. Things are going well. And here's what you can see in terms of matching, the time it takes for certain actions, right? And this is data that is maturing every day. But we're trying to show people that newly submitted applications, you send it in today, your life is going to be different than the sort of historic program pre-GDUFA. So what you can see is the newer cohorts, right? Look at that orange line. We're looking at the fastest 5% from each of these cohorts, right? FY15, we've already hit 5% approval rate and growing every day. That's the fastest we've ever approved that cohort since we started taking these types of metrics. And then as we get to the 10%, 25%, we're going to start sharing more and more of this data to let people know what is really going on within the generic program. As Cook said, one of the big wins from this, first cycle approvals, right? Get an IR, information request, help guide that company to quickly hitting that target and issue the approval or tentative approval, up from less than 1% to 9%. And we're not done. We want this number to increase more effort on guidances, more informal interactions in the future. All these things lined up to help facilitate bringing the applications that's newly submitted to market faster than ever before. Similar success with the second cycle. We know it's not always possible to get that one cycle approved. We will still work informally to try to close this out at that second cycle. Stop it from going to that third or fourth cycle and beyond that Cook presented earlier. And as Cook said, the number with us is dropping. Right? That's a big win. It means we can grab the application sooner, start to work on them, start to interact and communicate, both informally and formally, sooner with the companies. Here's sort of a picture that we're often asked to present. What does the ANDA program look like right now in terms of the unapproved applications? These numbers deviate a little bit from slide to slide because you've got to focus very carefully on the date. Every day the numbers are changing within this program. But what you see, about 23 applications with FDA physically being reviewed. Only 6 are outside of that GDUFA 1 goal date. Right? That's our commitment. Then you've got about 300, as we said, with industry. Right? They've got that tentative approval. Neither of us really can move forward on that. We've done our work. Industry's waiting for that clock to wind down. Then you have about 1,200 with industry itself, right? Still within the potential to be approved or tentatively approved. Right? Back with them for some minor fixes and hopefully then into the teams and turn it into an approval at that next cycle. And then you have a few that are with industry greater than a year. Right? More substantial efforts needed to bring those products online or potentially new contractual arrangements to bring that product to that final step that we're looking for. Our commitment doesn't stop. Once we approve that product, right, we celebrate, but the next day we go right back to work. Because anytime the company makes a change, we need to assess it. And the more likely that change is to impact safety, efficacy, quality, or substitutability of that generic, more likely it is you're going to be required to submit prior approval supplement. We have goals on this. We know these are important for maintaining the supply of the product, keeping your company running smoothly, so on and so forth. So what you see then, tremendous amount of effort to keep these submissions flowing through. Right? Watching them, we're working with the companies. We'll even do the informal communications. You got a big change. There's a couple things we can try to correct, sort of on the clock with the agency. We'll do it. We'll reach out to that company, tweak this, and we can bring this supplement to approval. What you see, these trends sort of look like that they're dropping off. That's not a lack of productivity. That's a reflection that we are paralleling the submission rate. Applications come in on the PAS side. They get a 6-month goal if there's no inspection needed, 10-month goal if there is an inspection. Right? So our trend is matching the receipts. And the best proof of this is our ability to meet the goal. Once again, we are exceeding the review goal for this cohort. They're tremendous. Hundreds of changes every year coming into those programs. And then in FY16, data is not fully mature yet, but it flips to the potential. We are meeting and exceeding still, and we're going to continue that. We are committed, not just to focusing on getting drugs approved, but maintaining the drugs that are already out there, to maintain their supply on the market, to keep these companies working on those products. So some high-level concluding remarks before we sort of flip gears and spend a couple minutes at the GDUFA 2 goals is under the GDUFA 1 program, right, we're in great shape. Record number of approvals and tentative approvals last year. On pace. We're going to be in that same neighborhood again this year. We are committed to bringing this. And we're committed not to just stop, right? We didn't set the record and then stop. We set the record and went back and looked at the pinch points. What were lessons learned from that year of great productivity? Where were there issues that we can improve on? Right? Across all the review programs, across the facility programs, right? And you're going to see more changes on that side as we work with the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality and the Office of Regulatory Affairs. Figure out where we need to inspect, get there sooner, bring the results back sooner, get those into the hands of the reviewers, whether it's a clinical site or a GMP site. Right? We're going to go wherever the key activities are occurring. We're going to bring that knowledge back in the review team so that they can assess it and respond to you on time. Thousands of communications going out. Right? The complete responses, hundreds and hundreds. Right? 150 every month. A few hundred informal information requests, easily correctable deficiencies going out every month. Exceeding all of the goals. We are committed to this. Once GDUFA is enacted, there's a panel that forms to evaluate how we behave against that goal. We are constantly reporting back to the agency. Here's the goal, here's where we are. Right? Leave no application behind is drilled into the reviewers and the project managers, and they take it very seriously. Few original ANDAs with FDA. That's the key. We work with you to reduce the cycles. Bring those applications to approval quicker. Better for you, better for us, better for the public. Allows us to get the next generation of submissions into the hands of the reviewers that much quicker. Right? And the more we can get through some of these older applications, the more time we're going to be able to dedicate to expanding the number of guidances, conducting research, fine-tuning the path forward for the NDAs that are being approved today. How do we line things up for success? So you're going to start to see the program pivot more and more to be responsive to new drug approvals to figure out the path forward, rather than reacting to the generic submission that's been sent to the filing team. Wow, look at this. What do we do? Who would have thought one came in? Well, we knew a generic's going to come in. We need to flip that. Right? So that's the big pivot within the agency now. Find that path forward and share it, where you still have time to take that path and build it into your development pipeline. Doesn't do any good to give you the path after you submit it. So we want to work with you. We're going to have a very formal pre-ANDA meeting program designed for some of the trickier applications that are submitted to the agency. Right? We have very formal meetings set up, more guidances, quicker guidances in terms of being issued after the NDA is approved, and really set up the companies submitting applications today and tomorrow for success. So a tremendous amount of effort. Keep the bar high, but give you the path to hit that bar. So with that, it's a very promising future on the generic side. Right? Every year you see all these NDAs being approved. We're working on those as they're approved to figure out what we can do to try to stimulate ANDA development. For those older products that still don't have generics submitted yet, we have folks looking at those. How do we champion maybe this niche RLD issue? Right? Small patient population, little economic value, but we still want to get generics in there. So you're going to see more and more guidances on these specialty type of products. So with that, it's a very good time to submit an ANDA. And it's only going to get better when we look at GDUFA 2. Right? And so we're not going to go through all these slides. You're going to hear a little bit more about this in the future. But we do want to point out a couple things very quickly as we're looking at sort of the next chapter of our life. So there was a public meeting back in October after we concluded the negotiations, and we outlined a set of metrics. And as Cook said, That's the key. We've now matured to the point on the generic program side that we've adopted this 90% metric. Right? That's the agency's benchmark for all the user fee programs for almost everything that we work on now. So what you'll see, if you go back and look at the commitment letter, and certainly if you pay attention to some of the other presentations that are coming on these next couple days, is tighter goals on the originals, tighter goals on the amendments, right? Not just one shot for success, but work with the company. We want you to be approved in that first cycle, but if it's not, we aren't giving up on you. We're going to work to get you approved on that second cycle. Post-approval. Continue. We understand that getting approved isn't enough. You've got to continuously market. Right? Goals on that. We don't give up when the application's approved. We have folks dedicated to making sure we can maintain the supply, maintain the facilities, take drugs that have been approved 20 years ago and help them modernize their facilities, whatever it takes to move these products forward. Bridging, talked about. We go into GDUFA 2, we're not giving up. Right? We're not starting with a fresh slate. We are bringing with us a couple thousand applications. We're going to work those through, and we will work with you to get those approved. So with that, I want to say thank you guys very much. Really a pleasure to be here, and we really appreciate all of the interest in the generic program. Thank you.